Yes.
Thank you. Just a couple of matters. When you were a senior lecturer from 1985 to 1996, what did you teach students about blood safety at that time?
So I taught them about safe practice to avoid wrong transfusion events, taught them about the risks of transfusion, taught them about appropriate use of blood. Those were the three main things.
An entirely separate topic. Were you aware of the use of single unit transfusions and whether they were particularly prevalent in any particular specialty?
Are you asking about a particular time frame for that question, or?
I'm asking a question on behalf of someone else, and
Yes.
the question simply asks whether you're aware of any particular specialty using more single unit transfusions than others.
So the use of single unit transfusions has been recognised to be good transfusion practice in recent years. In the old days, it was sometimes thought that if you're going to give a transfusion, you should give at least 2 units. But that practice has disappeared now, and we promote the use of single units. You don't give 2 if 1 will do, that sort of approach.
I think historically the question is probably aimed at whether, particularly in obstetric practice, when it was seen as less ideal to use a single unit transfusion, whether you saw more of the single unit transfusions in obstetrics than in other specialties.
I don't think so. I think the idea of what I've just said, of if you were going to give a transfusion, you give at least 2 units was prevalent across all specialties.
And then in relation to the Hospital Transfusion Committee, did anaesthetists attend the Hospital Transfusion Committee?
Yes. So often the critical care representative would be a senior anaesthetist. Sometimes you'd have both, but maybe just one of them.
And you were asked I asked you about the 1998 Better Blood initiatives and the steps taken to prevent ABO errors. And we talked particularly about the reasons why similar concerns weren't being addressed at about the time of the transmission-transmitted infections. Are you able to give any estimate of the numbers of ABO transfusion events compared with the numbers involved in the transfusion-transmitted infections?
Not off the top of my head, no. I'm sure that data are available. So I point to the survey that Brian McClellan did in the early 90s, and of course to the very early SHOT reports for data on ABO incompatible transfusions. And data on transfusion-transmitted infections, again, would be available through SHOT and through other resources.
Thank you. So those are the questions I've been asked to ask, and I'm not aware of any further questions. Do you have anything that you would like to raise with Professor Murphy?
No, I don't. Thank you very much.
Professor Murphy, is there anything else you would like to say?
Yes, I'd just like to say and to express my sadness for what happened to patients who were infected as a result of blood transfusion. The tragic evidence presented to this inquiry has highlighted to me how that has affected both them and their families over many years. I hope the evidence presented to this inquiry will provide the answers that they have been looking for, and also the learning to help our patients in the future.
Well, I echo that hope, and thank you for those words, and thank you for your evidence. It's important for us to know, for the obvious reasons, what the context is in which transfusions were given to people who later suffered or discovered they suffered, some perhaps haven't yet discovered, that they suffer from infections which were transferred to them through blood. But thank you very much.
The inquiry isn't sitting now until Wednesday, and when we'll hear from Professor Goldstone and Dr. Thomas.
So Professor Goldstone first next Wednesday at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock.